or not much creativity. I mean, he doesn't have, like, he's not gonna. Maybe one play. I've watched all 5 Steelers games, and there was one play that the or maybe one play a game, and the announcer's like, "Wow, Matt Canada really pulled a good one out of his hat," and that's literally it. But every other game, you see like, yeah, the offensive did this. The offensive coordinator, and I don't really know many offensive other coordinators, but they just say the name of the offensive coordinator and say, yeah, he did this perfectly. They did this perfectly, and you only get that one time a game with Matt Canada. And I think they can be, like, so dangerous. I think they can be, like, levels that are so much higher than they are now. And that's why I get offended when the teams talk about their consistency. Because it's like, it's not at full power. And obviously Matt Canada is who they have, and who you have is who you have to work with now. But, like, it's hindering their ability when you have a Deontay Johnson or a George Pickens who's literally dangerous. I think George Pickens is going to be a top 10 wide receiver, but that's neither here nor there. And you're seeing them, and you're not seeing a dangerous team. You're not seeing a dangerous Najee Harris. You are seeing a dangerous George Pickens, but all the other players, you're not seeing a dangerous Calvin Austin, really, because they're not being done to their full ability. And that not being done to their full ability, it's like they're disrespecting themselves. You're disrespecting yourself by not doing your team the justice. Maybe it's like a mix of everything. I think it's mainly Matt Canada, and you're doing your team a disservice by not being creative and by hindering your team, and then it's causing everybody else, the outside noise, to say like, yeah, they're not consistent, but it's not accurate. I don't think it's accurate because I think he is hurting them.
You think it's just a bunch of noise. Avery, any thoughts?
Well, I think that's why people have such like strong opinions about the Steelers in general too, in saying that they are inconsistent. Because I mean, even though it might not be the Steelers in particular that are inconsistent, it's their coaching. Like, it's just a mixture of everything. It's the injuries, but I mean that's what makes them inconsistent. So it's hard to say whether or not like they're going to be a contender in anything when they're not at full power. So I get it. I get what you're trying to say. It's just like hard for me to say my opinion on like how I feel about the Steelers when they don't have all their weapons that they need.
So the question remains is, what's it going to take for the Steelers to become back to full power? Are they going to have to do some replacing of some coaches? Is it just waiting for injuries? And I can start with you, Alex. What is it going to take for the Steelers to be back to 110% and not just 90%?
Well, I think the percentages are a little shaky. I mean, I don't know if they're at 90. I'm not even fully blaming health. I mean, I think they're going to be better when they get Deontay Johnson back.
Yeah.
And I think the talent is so good, like Deontay Johnson and them. I think that's so good that they can beat the Ravens. And on Good Morning Football, and this kind of goes back to what Avery said about like how the Ravens kind of lost it themselves. This guy
I think Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football, he had this quote, and I absolutely loved it. It was so awesome. So he's like, well, Ravens are probably thinking, man, we're better. We should have won this game. And then this is me speaking as him. He's like, well, you're not, because if you're better, you would have beaten them. If you're better, you wouldn't have let them get 17 straight points. The drop passes, and my brother got in this, and my brother's telling me about this, and I'm kind of sick of it. And then, they did drop passes. They dropped the one in the end zone, and they dropped the one to Aguilar that was like going to be a touchdown. Yeah. But like those are touchdowns. But those are some mistakes, and maybe T.J. Watt was getting a little bit more pressure. And if it would have been it was some of them pretty accurate. But maybe the cornerback kind of got in the face or got intimidated Aguilar, and then maybe there was just a drop or two, a drop. But even with those 2 drops, they still intercepted him on 3rd and goal after everything looked like. And they absolutely broke the heart. Gunnar Orlovsky, absolutely hate him. He fumbled. Steelers were totally on the way to win. He fumbled. The Ravens picked it up and got it on their own red zone. They got it on 1st and goal. And then Joey Porter Jr. intercepted the ball, and he did that. And if he didn't do that, they would have won. But he did that as a rookie. He intercepted Lamar, and he showed that he can cover Odell Beckham Jr. and that
And not only can he cover him and prevent him from getting a touchdown, but Ravens didn't even need a touchdown. They needed a field goal, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, with the Ravens less than 10 yards away, he prevented points he prevented the Ravens from getting points when they were 7 yards away from the end zone with 3 minutes left. And the Steelers did that, and it did not have anything to do with drops. The Ravens were put in the perfect position, and their star-studded offense with Odell, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews were not good enough to score when they needed to. Not good enough to score 3 points when they needed only 3 points.
So Avery, what's your opinion? Is it the fact that the Steelers' defense is so good and they are the reason why the Ravens lost, or is it because of the Ravens' own wrongdoings? I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but where do you think that happened? Do you think it was because the Steelers were good enough, or do you think it was a fault by the Ravens?
I mean, maybe at first I probably would have said that if the Ravens just, caught those passes, that would have been 2 touchdowns right there. But I mean, you bring up a good point that, you can make that excuse for literally any game. That if they just didn't do this wrong, then this team would have won. So, I mean, you do make up a good point that I think that maybe it wasn't as much as if the Ravens just didn't drop so many passes, then maybe they should have won that game.
It sounds like they should have won, but we had an unexpected turnout by the Steelers that changed the course of that game. And now we're talking about the Steelers again, and we're talking about the Ravens, even though the Steelers are a little bit more on the highlight, because it is a question: are they going to win this next coming game, or are they going to go fall back and not succeed? So, is there anything else we want to add on that topic?
I think we should move on to the next topic.
So, we all saw the 49ers game and the Cowboys. So, for this headline, for our sixth round headline, it starts off with us saying, and I think we can all agree, Taylor Swift is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, who played like a deflated bag of stale Cheetos Sunday night. The question being posed is, after such a blowout, there's only one question that remains. Can the 49ers go undefeated and win the Super Bowl? Or are the Cowboys just that bad? Let's start with Avery, because Alex, we had you go off on your Steelers. Avery, I want to hear about your 49ers.
Yeah. We saw it was a tremendous loss for the Cowboys, 10-42. They got blown out of the water. They were playing the Browns this Sunday. We saw that Dak Prescott, he threw 3 interceptions. I think he only has one other interception, too, this season. His accuracy is clearly very limited, and he's just a super inconsistent quarterback. I think he's done. He can't read the defense, and he's just getting destroyed by some of these players who are a lot younger, a lot fresher, and as we see from the Niners, I mean, their defense is completely stacked. These big guys, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, my favorite. He's my man crush. And yeah, I mean, it's a known fact that the Niners are looking super good this year. They're looking incredible. Their offense is stacked as well. The only thing that I can say is, can they stay undefeated and can they be a contender, is if they can stay healthy or not. They're literally the most injury-prone team there is. I mean, last season was devastating. It was horrible. And it was a horrible thing to watch. Just to see everything that they worked for. They were doing so well, and then injury after injury, it just and that totally destroys the team as well. McCaffrey had only a total of 51 yards, and that honestly raised a few concerns by people being is he being targeted? And there was an interview with Kyle Shanahan, and I want to read this quote. He said, "I don't think teams are trying to hit him in the helmet or trying to face mask him. I think people are desperate on how to bring him down. I mean, you look at the tackle versus Arizona. If that guy didn't do all that stuff, Christian was walking in for a touchdown or carrying him in for a touchdown. When you run that hard, guys do whatever they can to get a guy down, and sometimes they grab onto the face mask. The helmets to helmets, those are tight windows. Christian runs really good routes, and our quarterback is putting it in tight areas. I mean, he's number 1 in the NFL. He's got 510 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns already. Of course he's going to be targeted, by teams if another team is coming to play them, the coach is probably going to tell you, to look out for him. So I don't think it's that he's trying to be targeted in specific, but if he's a good player, he's an incredible player, he's going to be he's going to be looked at, And the Browns also have a way better defense than the Cowboys. So you take this matchup, it's going to be harder than what the Cowboys were. The Cowboys are not that great, but I think it's important to keep an eye out for Myles Garrett on their defense. They've got a great defense. It's kind of similar to the Niners, not like on how good each other is, but they have a similar style in a way. But like I said, as long as the Niners can keep themselves healthy for the rest of the season, then I think that they can, at least for the next couple of games, I have to look at some of the other matchups, stay undefeated for this weekend in particular.
And it sounds like it's that question is how targeted, if targeted, but like how defended is McCaffrey going to be, and if that's going to lead to an injury. If, and this is an interesting side question, and Alex, I want to get your opinion. If McCaffrey was to go down, let's say today, he pulled Aaron Rodgers, ACL, done for the season, what would the Niners look like? Would they still be a Super Bowl contender, or do they have to rethink their options?
And you're asking me?
I'm asking Avery, and then I want your opinion.
Oh, sorry. I totally zoned out.
If McCaffrey went down today, are the Niners still contenders?
I would say yeah. He is a star player, for sure. He's what gets them their rushing yards, for sure. But there are also a ton of other players on that team who are just as important as he is. Do I think it's going to take a hit on them? Of course, 100%. Because now they're going to have to try and fill that spot. And it's going to take a mental toll because when you're taking out star players as well, like he has a really great chemistry with Purdy as well. So when you take that out, it's like
you mess up the magic.
Yeah, you mess up the magic. So of course it would take a hit on them, but do I think it would determine whether or not they were still going to be a contender? I don't think so. No.
Oh, interesting. Alex, what are your opinions on these Niners? Do you think that they have a chance against them? Do you think they're going to blow out the Browns this weekend? Do you think it's going to be a little less of a blowout? What are your opinions on these Niners and their undefeated season?
All right, I have a lot of opinions. So first of all, I wanted to comment on the Browns defense. They're good, and they did for like the first 3 weeks only allowed like one offensive touchdown from the Steelers, George Pickens, and I don't think they're nearly as good as the Niners. Like, I don't think the Browns stand a chance. But I was just thinking about this, and this is where the Niners are. Okay, this is like not too much to do with the Niners' contention ability, but I think when you're like a 5-0 team or you're one of an undefeated team, I think their upsets can be pulled off. Maybe not this early, but I just want it to be known that the only way the Browns would win would just be like some random upset, like what happened to the Falcons and 49ers last year. So I think the 49ers are going to win.
I agree.
But I think the only way the Browns would win is if it was some random upset, and I really hope that doesn't happen.
Well, then what's their contention for the rest of the season?
All right. I've been wanting to get into this. So, my opinion changed on the 49ers week 1. And I specifically didn't want to go over this also while wanting to go over this, but I have to give the backstory.
Because it's embarrassing for you, is that why?
Ooh.
It was a tough week. So
That's an in-your-face comment.
So this is what I learned. Week 1, 3 plays into the game, the Steelers versus Niners game, Najee went for a run to run through the open hole, and who came through the open hole was Fred Warner. Fred Warner came through the open gap or whatever and destroyed Najee. This is 3 plays into the game. And I sat back for a second and I was like, wait a minute, this is going to be a hard game. And then I watched as we ran through Christian McCaffrey with a 68-yard touchdown, but absolutely humiliated, as if the Steelers were in prison, and it was horrible.
It was horrible.
And here are my thoughts on the Niners. It's a cheat code. This is like, when I say cheat code or when I say they're cheating the system, they're not actually doing anything wrong. So I'm going to say that a couple times. I just want to preference they're not doing anything wrong. But they have Brock Purdy, who's like the effing Terminator, and does everything how he needs to do it. And he's getting paid like less than $1 million. So that's important. But then,
So, they're paying their star quarterback, and I don't know if fully star quarterback, but at this point, he's undefeated. He never lost a game that he
Star of the
finished.
season. Star quarterback of the season for the Niners.
Yeah,
obviously.
so he's the star quarterback, and he's getting paid less than $1 million. So that allows them to have a God squad on everywhere. They have Fernunga, safety, elite. That's the safety, and I'm sure the other safety's probably good. Then they have Charvarius Ward. They have the guy from the Chiefs that they traded. He's a great safety. I'm cornerback. I'm sure the other cornerbacks. Then you have the linebackers, who's Fred Warner, best linebacker in the league. It's not like you say best, I say best linebacker, and you have to think in your head best linebacker, and then just think a tier above that, because he's that good. And I've named great players. and I haven't even named their best player yet, and I haven't even named their best defensive asset. So they have Fred Warner. They have Dre Greenlaw, who's going to get paid a lot, but has not been paid yet because he's still on his rookie contract. So that comes into them cheating the system, doing well. And then you have the defensive line, and they're paying Bosa, highest paid defensive player, obviously. He's not the best defensive player in the league, but, he's paid the most. And then just next to him, you have Javon Hargrave, who got third in sacks last year, and Nick Bosa got first. So you have two of the top 3 team players in sacks of last year, and you have the best linebacker, and it's a God squad. If you literally to create a team in Madden, if you told somebody create a team in Madden, and you have unlimited potential, and you compared that team to the NFL, it would be the 49ers would be the closest team. And I literally want somebody to do that, and that's what's going to turn out, because you have Kittle, you have Debo, you have Ayuk, and you have Christian McCaffrey, and you have Purdy, and you have Trent Williams, and you're not supposed to have that many good teams on a players. I cried after that Steelers 49ers game. I literally told my mom, who's a Steelers fan, 49ers, I was like, I never want to play the 49ers again. It hurts.
Yes.
It hurts to see Christian McCaffrey run 68 yards for a touchdown. It hurts to see Brandon Ayuk catch every single thing. And it's, I don't want to sound like a whining word, but, it's not fair. It's not fair to have that many good players in a team. And this is kind of sweet but sour, and I don't want to be like a sore loser or whatever.
You can be a sore loser.
But this is a good thing. It's a good thing for me, because their expectations are so high. If they do not win the Super Bowl this year, considering how good they are, then it's a horrible season. And I know how that sounds.
No, that's true, though. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Avery.
It kind of was like last season, too. Obviously they went through a lot with their quarterbacks and stuff like that, but once they put Purdy in and they were winning these games, it's like you're working so hard, and right now they're playing so well. You're undefeated right now. The only other team that's undefeated is the Eagles. If all of that just to come where you don't win the Super Bowl, and people got their money bet that the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl. If they don't win, it's going to be like what is this even for? You know?
An interesting question to pose for both of you then is, let's say hypothetically, we had a Falcons and Niners game come together, somehow. They come together and they go, who's going to win? Would it be Falcons or would it be Niners? You have 2 undefeated teams, so you think Brock Purdy? Yes.
Oh, yeah, the Eagles and Niners.
Yes, so the Eagles and Niners just randomly, they had a game together. Who do you think would win that game? Would it be the Niners and Brock Purdy and his amazing team, or do you think the Falcons would be able to stop that? Yeah, I keep saying Falcons, I apologize, the Eagles.
No, you're good.
So would the Eagles win, or are we going to would the Niners just destroy those Eagles?
Well, I think this is where I'm kind of coming at, where if the 49ers don't lose, if the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, it's a them not winning the Super Bowl is like the Chiefs not making the playoffs, kind of. Not exactly, but that's kind of to the level.
I see what you're saying.
and I know that's like so weird to say because the Super Bowl, I mean, it's such a hard, difficult thing to win. But they have a God Squad.
They have the God Squad.
They have MJ. They have the Toon Squad or whatever in the thing. So then this is where I'm coming back. I think they're gonna beat the Eagles because I don't think any team in the NFC can beat the 49ers. Like it would have to be an upset. It would have to be a bad. But if they play how they've been playing the last 5 weeks, no team in that. The Eagles, like I think the Eagles were meant to beat them last year, even though Brock Purdy. I mean, they still gave up like 30-something points to the Eagles' offense, and that had not really anything to do with Brock Purdy. Obviously, it like hurts to lose your quarterback, and it kind of morally hurts. But. So last year happened how it happened, but this is a different year. Eagles are a different team. 49ers are a different team because they remembered that pain. So I think no team in the NFC could beat them. And the only teams that could beat them are the Chiefs and I think a healthy Bengals squad. But we're not going to get into the Bengals.
Avery, what do you think? If we had a situation like that, Eagles-Niners, who would win this
I'm
year?
surprised you didn't say Steelers.
Make that two of us.
I know, this is crazy.
What already happened?
I mean, I also might be biased, but I do think that the Niners are going to win. If they were to have a matchup against the Eagles, I do think that would be what would happen. For the Eagles in particular, it would be cool to see them back in the Super Bowl just because they lost last year. But, I mean, they had a good season last year, 14 wins, 3 losses. They beat out some tough matches, and they barely lost to the Chiefs last year, so it would be a good comeback for them. And they did win the NFC Championship last year against the Niners, and that's what he's referring to. But I do think that if you take where the teams are right now, and like I said, if the Niners stay healthy the way that they're looking right now, they would. I think that they would absolutely beat the Eagles for sure.
Eagles.
Yeah.
Well, then to bring us into point number 9, and we can stick with you, Avery. To keep talking about the Eagles, we'll go to our number. I think I said 9, but our number 7 headline, our 7-down headline. The Eagles are obviously one of the only other. They're the only other team that's undefeated, right? We've already talked about that. So we've been talking about the Super Bowl a lot. Do you think the Eagles are going to continue to be undefeated, and are they going to stay undefeated throughout the weekend, or do you think that streak's going to get destroyed sooner rather than later?
Yeah, so they're playing the Jets, I think, on Sunday. Is who the Eagles are playing. And what I'm wondering is if the Jets defense will be able to pressure their offense enough. DeAndre Swift is the running back. He played this week, and he gave almost 70 yards. And the Jets need to be able to not give up so many yards if the Eagles decide to run the ball. And the Eagles tend to run their ball a lot. So what I'm saying, like, the Jets need to be able to be prepared for that in order to beat the Eagles. Do I think that the Jets are going to beat the Eagles? Probably not. I do still think that the Eagles are going to beat the Jets, but then that would leave them still undefeated. But I also think that the Niners are probably going to win this weekend as well. So now we're still going to be stuck on the same standing where it's like, all right, now both teams are 6-0. And it's going to be a huge deal when one of them, and if one of them breaks that undefeated, and who it's going to be first is what I'm just curious to see, and how big that game, and what is it going to take for each team in general, the Eagles and the Niners, for them to break that streak that they have.
What do you think would it take? What would it take for, let's say, the Eagles for that streak to break? Do you think it would have to be injuries incurred, like we were talking about the Niners, like they just have to, or would Alex was saying would just have to be a complete kerfuffle, or
just like an upset?
Just an upset in general.
I'd be kind of interested to see if like one of the teams just yeah.
I mean, it's always fun to see when you see the big dog, no matter who the team is.
As long as it's not the Niners, it's fine by me.
What are your opinion on the Eagles? Are they going to stay undefeated? It sounds against the Jets this weekend, and are they going to continue being undefeated, or are they going to be the first ones to lose in this undefeated race to the Super Bowl?
Wait, I'm going to add one more thing, sorry.
Oh, I'm so
sorry. The last
Avery.
time that the Jets beat the Eagles, I think the last 12 games they played, the Eagles have won every single time in the regular season, so it would be a stretch if the Jets won, but I don't know.
That's a good stat.
Let's hear what you have to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even know if the Jets have even beaten the Eagles
No.
at all.
No.
Like in the entire times of their two things thing. So I do think the Eagles are gonna win. I mean, Zach Wilson's not gonna beat Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is like he's so sick. He can deadlift like 650 pounds, so he's just strong, and he can he's like strong. So there's that, and then that obviously helps with the running. And then he had like that complete dime to AJ Brown in the Super Bowl. So like you just kind of get those two, and that's obviously simplifying it so much. But like that's all. Maybe that's all you need to simplify it. He can throw dimes, and he's strong enough to squat 600. And you don't want to go against that at quarterback.
Heck no.
So, but here's also what I'm going to say. So I don't think they're going to beat the Jets, but here's what I would think. I think the Eagles are going to lose well before the 49ers because, and also goes what I was saying before with the 49ers don't have opposition. I mean, maybe they could like pull off and like have a bad game and lose to a random team, but if two teams are on their best, say if the 49ers are on their best game, the rest of the remaining 12 games, and if all their opponents are on their best game, no opponent's going to beat them. But I think if the Eagles are on their best game, they're going to go up against another team who's also going to go bring their best, and I think the Eagles could lose. I think the Eagles could lose to the Cowboys, and then I have zero respect for the Cowboys. And Dak Prescott is absolute garbage. I never liked Dak Prescott.
You think the Cowboys would beat the Eagles?
Yeah,
I want to hear this. No, please.
I think it'd be a divisional thing. The 49ers division is good. Obviously, they have like the Rams who are doing pretty well, and they have the Seahawks who are doing pretty well, second best record in the NFC. And still, you get those division rivalries, but you get that you always play well against your division rival. I mean, usually you do. Like the Steelers play well against the Ravens, even though teams thought the Ravens were going to win. But the Niners, they don't care about that. They don't care. They don't care if the Niners were 12-5 going, or 12-4 going into the weekend, and then Seahawks were undefeated. Like just their two teams, they're gonna beat the Seahawks because they're better than the Seahawks. But and the Eagles are better, but they're not than the Cowboys, but they're not that much better.
Well, I want to hear. And in Avery, you had some strong opinions on that. You don't think the Eagles can beat, or you think Alex says the Cowboys could probably beat the Eagles. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think they're gonna.
What's your opinion on that? Do you think Dak Prescott can bring it back up and beat the Eagles in such a?
I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, I can't see that happening. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, did you want to go more into that?
I mean, Dak Prescott is just. I just feel like he's just not there. And like he can't read. Like I brought this up earlier. He just can't read the defense well.
No.
His throws are just like all over the place. That if he was to be put up against, like they were to be put up against the Eagles, I just can't see. I mean, that would be pretty embarrassing if they lost against the Cowboys, especially after the Niners beat the Cowboys too, and then you have the Eagles come in who are also undefeated. And I feel like right now a lot of people are comparing the Eagles because I mean they're both the undefeated teams. Do I think they're comparable? Not really, because I think the Niners are better. But I mean that's
what you're saying.
Yeah, like I said, if the Eagles were to lose against the Cowboys, that would shock me. I feel like.
What would it take for the Cowboys, in your opinion, to defeat the Eagles? Would it have to be?
I don't think they could. I don't think that their team is equipped and have what they need right now to even
try.
To even try.
Well, Alex, anything to add on to that?
Yeah. So the Cowboys, they're missing Trayvon Diggs. He's gonna be like out for the year, which is kind of like, that's kind of whatever. I don't know how big of a difference he makes. But I don't respect the Eagles that much. I mean, obviously.
I don't either. I'm just saying, out of the two, that's just what I think.
I mean, after Dak Prescott's performance, I have to agree from the narration booth that it would be interesting. It'd be a really interesting game to see our undefeated Eagles lose to a performance by the Cowboys. It would have to take short of a miracle, it seems like.
Well, okay.
But Alex, you have some strong opinions.
Well, yeah. At this point, the 49ers and the Eagles, they aren't comparable because the 49ers are, I mean, last year the Eagles are different, but last year Eagles are not this year Eagles.
Well, that's a big difference. We are talking, this is this year, and it's kind of like we can always talk about last year's, which is important, but it is like this moment of this time. How are they showing?
Yeah, so it's a big difference. But the reason I say that about the Cowboys is because the Cowboys aren't at such a high level that the 49ers are. Like, the 49ers are at such a high level that they look at other teams as like peasants. They like look at other teams and they're like, we're just gonna roll over you. And maybe that's where the Eagles were last year because they did so well. But the Eagles aren't there. Like, the Eagles, it takes a lot less of a good performance to beat the Eagles, I think, than it does for a good performance to beat the Niners.
I would agree.
Yeah, you have to be on your A game. You not only do you have to be on your A game, but you have to get lucky. You have to have maybe Christian McCaffrey go out for a couple plays. Maybe you have to have like one of them just not playing that week to take a break week. And then maybe even if one of their offensive or defensive players weren't playing, you still have to have the other one have a bad game. And then even if that's happened, they could be missing Christian McCaffrey for one game, and Brandon Ike still has a good game and has a bad game, and you could still lose. Because then Debo's just going to be like, well, I don't care. I'll run straight over you. And then you're like, okay, you give up 2 touchdowns to the Niners. Well, maybe you won't score more than 14 or 13 points against the Niners defense. So it's not like it's hard to a win against the Niners seems almost unobtainable to a lot of teams. But I think a lot of teams can just have a good game and they could beat the Eagles. I think the Lions, who aren't nearly as good as the Eagles, could beat the Eagles. I think the Cowboys, who are absolute garbage. I mean, Dak Prescott doesn't even need to have a good game, and Tony Pollard and Micah Parsons could do enough to beat the Eagles. But Micah Parsons can have a great game, which he didn't have a great game. They totally shut him out in the 49ers game. He was not a factor at all, and they humiliated him.
The Cowboys really thought that they were going to beat the Niners, though.
That's true.
I mean, you ask I've seen so many interviews where people will ask, what is the worst fan base in all of the NFL?
It's the Cowboys.
I kid you not. Every single time, people will 90% of the time say it's the Cowboys. They really thought, they were like, just you wait till you have to play the Cowboys, and then they got blew out of the water. Like, did you see that at the end of the game, Kittle like pulled up his shirt and it said like F the Cowboys?
Oh.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually will say something before this. I actually did think the Cowboys were gonna win.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. But here's my opinion. Well, it was savage too what Kittle did. I mean, I love him, and I don't even like Kittle that much. But this is what I was thinking, and I do want to say this just since that game is the most fresh thing. Here was my opinion before the game. I was like, I think the Cowboys need a win because they need to like the 49ers kind of need to let that pressure like blow out. Like the Cowboys have been building up so much pressure and so much hatred for the Niners because they ended their playoffs 2 years in a row plus this. So if it comes to that, if the Niners beat, this was me before the game, if the Niners beat the Cowboys, when it comes to the playoffs, maybe Micah Parsons will just be sick of it. Maybe Micah Parsons is going to be sick of the Niners and say, no, I'm not losing a third time in a row. And Micah Parsons is different. I mean, I hate the Cowboys and I love Micah Parsons. I like him like, I like Lamar. I don't really know how to explain it, but I love Micah Parsons. So I was thinking like the Cowboys need the 49ers need to like give the Cowboys something, because if they starve them from the wins, which is beating them the last 3 times that they did, then they're going to come so hungry in the playoffs that they're going to beat them.
But will that be enough? Because, you can want to win so bad, but if you suck, then...
Yeah, that's okay. That's a good point. Because
you're not going to win, so...
That's what happened. Yeah, then I realized that the 49ers are just so good.
Because I feel like they are fed up. I feel like the Cowboys are just like... Because, there were so many interviews that came after that game, too. Just even about, like, Kittle's, like, remark where he pulled up his shirt. And, like, people were really, really mad about that. Like, that's so disrespectful or whatever.
I mean, he had that on the whole game, if you think about it.
Yeah, it
Or
was
at least he went in the last time.
Awesome.
Someone had to write that on his shirt. Yeah.
But yeah, once I watched the game, I was like, then the game made me realize how much of a difference there is between the 49ers and the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I kind of really materialized that the Cowboys are that the Niners are gonna be hard to beat.
So I guess we'll bring this as the final point, and this might be just to sum up between these Niners and this Cowboys game. And this will be our final question. We're rounding up to the hour here. And I know we had a few others to get to, but we're not going to unfortunately have time. But for this final question, it sounds like we're at this interesting crossroads. Did the Niners beat the Cowboys because the Niners are so good? Or did the Cowboys lose because they're so bad? Or is it a combination of the two? Avery?
I mean, I feel like now that we're in week 5 we just finished week 5 going into week 6, I think it's hard to say because I don't think the Niners have met a single matchup that's like on their level.
What would be a matchup that would be on
I
their
honestly
level?
don't. There is no such matchup. There's no such thing. Like I don't know because
At least in their current stat, as long as they stay healthy.
Which is why they should win the Super Bowl.
right. Yeah.
So the odds are right now the Niners should be winning the Super Bowl as long as prevailed. If anything else, as long as there's no injuries, no coach mishaps, or any of the sorts, as long as there's no drama or injuries, the Niners should have a clear-cut win to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Even with our Steelers and even with our 5-0 Eagles.
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
Since this is kind of the final,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say this, and this is going back to Brock Purdy.
Brock
And
Purdy?
we'll just see how good Brock Purdy is, but this is what I want to see, and this just kind of like what Avery said about teams that match up against the Niners, which obviously I don't think there are any teams that match up, but maybe you don't need a team that can match up against the Bengals. And this is what I said earlier about the Chiefs and the Bengals. And the Bengals are whatever. But I'm just going to assume the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. And I'm going to assume the Bengals are going to make it far in the playoffs. And this is what I think about the Bengals and the Chiefs and the Niners. Those are the 3 teams I have right now that I think could win the Super Bowl. And it hurts to say because everybody likes Joe Burrow. But nobody likes him when he humiliates your team 4 games in a row. Or 3 games in a row.
He does.
So that happened, but I respect Joe Burrow. And then this is what I wanted to bring. This is why I wanted to bring up Joe Burrow. There's Joe Burrow. So I talked about Bengals, 49ers, and Chiefs. But then this is how I think you should be doing it. Why the 49ers maybe won't win the Super Bowl? Because you say that you compare the 3 teams, but then when you compare Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow, and Mahomes, I think there's difference. Like we don't fully know as much about Brock Purdy, but we know a lot about Mahomes and we know a lot about Joe Burrow, and they're just different.
Yeah.
They no matter their teams are obvious. All 3 of those teams are elite. Obviously, the Niners have the best team, but Mahomes is just different. Mahomes could have the worst team. I mean, he still kind of needs Kelsey and he needs Chris Jones to be there. So we're just going to assume they meet like either Bengals, 49ers, Chiefs, 49ers in the Super Bowl. Say they're all healthy. Mahomes brings a different factor, and maybe even Burrow brings a different factor where he can beat that God team. He could be the David going against the 49ers Goliath. And it's only those 2 quarterbacks, not much to do with the teams. 49ers have an unbeatable team, but maybe the word unbeatable doesn't apply to maybe the word unbeatable doesn't affect Mahomes and it doesn't affect Joe Burrow, and they could beat them because they're just that different.
Avery, what do you think? Do you think the Niners have some sort of contenders, especially does Brock Purdy have to worry about Joe Burrow, and does he have to worry about or Pat Mahomes?
I like how you brought up like the Niners. It's not just Brock Purdy, and I think that he also got like would just get a lot of hate from other people saying like, well, of course Brock Purdy's going to be a good quarterback because look at his team.
Look at his team.
Look at
said
the
that for a
offense.
while.
But I mean, I choose to disagree. I think that whole team makes up an unbeatable team. And where with Mahomes, obviously a great quarterback, it would be, I mean, when was the last time that the same team won the Super Bowl 2 times in a row? I don't even.
That's a while.
It's been a while.
I think it was. I think
Have the Steelers ever done that?
Yeah, the Steelers did it twice.
Oh, flexi flex
Hey.
flex.
But I think the Patriots might have done it.
I think you're right.
50 and oh wait, I don't know. Probably the
It's
Patriots.
been a while though.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Avery
is
is
what I'm
right.
saying.
It's been a while.
For the Chiefs, I feel a little bit unsure about that, and also one of the other prompts we were going to get into, which I won't get too much into, is
Go ahead, get into it.
about Kelsey's injury. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's still questionable for tonight's game, but I'm not sure. And in week 1, when Kelsey was out, the Chiefs lost. So, and then after that, they've been undefeated since. So my question arises, if Kelsey gets hurt again or he's out, is Mahomes still going to be able to perform at the level that he is when he's with him? And is it enough to, if he's not there, is that going to be enough to get him to the Super Bowl or not? Is what I'm, I don't even know if that would even be a good matchup for the Niners in particular. And Joe Burrow, I love Joe Burrow, but do I think he's a contender against, I feel like they're a little bit, and this is also another thing, this is last season. I also had him for fantasy, and he's just a little bit inconsistent. I don't know. Something about him is, I feel like he's just not at the same level as, Purdy is. And another thing about that I think about him is he's super, super cocky. And that's one of the things why people don't like him very much, is because of his, and where you take Purdy's super humble. He goes out there, he plays his game, he does what he needs to do, and he's out. And I think a little bit of just Burrow's personality could get in the way, possibly. I don't know. I just, like I said, my opinions are biased. I think the Niners right now are just at the state where they don't really have any contenders that I can see. I genuinely don't even know who the matchup could be. I could give some guesses. I think the Bengals and the Chiefs are a possible contender, but do I think that it's going to be enough for them?
Are we going to see Taylor Swift in the stands at the Super Bowl or not? And especially with this Kelsey
maybe
injury.
I do want the Chiefs. Just so I can see all that. It's flooded everywhere.
Oh, gosh.
Enough is enough.
Well, I think with that, we can bring it around to the end of the show here. Thank you both for being on. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye to our viewers today?
Well, I did kind of want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs Bengals statement, but
You can say.
I know. I could tell he wanted to say something.
Go ahead.
oh yeah. So first of all, I kind of disagree with the Joe Burrow. I think the Bengals are really cocky, and that's a huge reason why I wanted them to lose against the Chiefs. There was other reasons, but
Yeah.
they started doing the father thing. They started doing Burrowhead. They started they lit cigarettes after beating the Bills in the divisional round. You don't do that in the divisional round. You do that in the Super Bowl. So they're cocky, but I actually don't think Joe Burrow is that cocky. I think Joe Burrow kind of, he knows he's good, and he kind of buys into it a little bit, and he knows he's cool. But I think he's I think he has what it takes.
I think he has what it takes for sure, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is he going to show?
Yeah, no, he's going to show. Okay, that was bad wording. Joe Burrow is different. Joe Burrow's like the next Tom Brady, and I don't want to end on a huge statement like that, but he's the closest thing to Tom Brady. So I don't think he's the type to put his team to lose a game for his team. I think either his team has to disappoint him, just like they did last year with that player who pushed Mahomes out of bounds. Without that, I think they probably, maybe they wouldn't have won, but they had a better chance of winning. And obviously, and then Mahomes, I even think Joe Burrow puts his team in less danger than Mahomes does. I think Mahomes risks more things and loses games for his team more than Joe Burrow. And that's why the Bengals are 2-3, and as a biased Steelers fan, Bengals are 2-3, last in the division. I'm still talking about them winning the Super Bowl, and that's how I feel about Joe Burrow.
Okay.
And then Mahomes.
Go ahead.
But Mahomes, without Travis Kelce, he's not beating the 49ers or not even getting to the Super Bowl. I think there's too many good teams in the AFC that would beat them without the Super Bowl. So that's why I kind of made the assumption if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and they got a little bit of fantasy right there going on. If the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and I'm going to assume they do have Travis Kelce, then I think it's more 50-50 than
it seems, than it appears with the godlike status.
With
of
the
Niners.
godlike status. Avery, do you have anything you want to add to that? Do you think that if they have Kelsey, do they have more of an equal chance, or even with Kelsey, you think the Chiefs would just get destroyed by the Niners?
I think they would have more of a chance, but I mean...
Still on the
Yeah.
49ers winning side. Well,
And I'm not a bandwagon, guys. Just because they're doing well does not mean I'm a bandwagon. I've been a fan, born and raised. I'm a Niners fan, even if they suck.
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to for next week. We definitely we'll keep an eye out for our Niners and our Eagles, but we're also going to see what's going to happen with the Chiefs and this injury with Kelsey. It sounds like we're still unsure on the outcome of that. And just to see how are the Lions going to end up doing? How are the Patriots? Are they going to keep doing their downfall like they have been, or are they going to be able to come back even after that loss against the Saints?
Steelers have a bye week.
And the Steelers have a bye week. Is that going to give them enough time to recoup, regenerate, and get ready for the next week? All these questions and more, find out next time on In Your Face Sports with Alex Katona and Avery Diaz. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and this was KGUR, Cuesta College Radio. In Your Face Sports with Alex Katona and Avery Diaz.
Sweet.
And that's a wrap.